Lyra checked her gathering basket one final time, making sure the leather straps were secure, and the lined interior would protect the delicate herbs she was about to collect. Moon petal only bloomed in the highest mountain areas, and only for 3 days after a full moon. Miss this window, and she'd have to wait another month while the wasting sickness spread through the lower districts. Where are you watching from? I hope you've never been called invisible by people who should have seen you. Never had to prove your worth over and over to those who decided you were worthless before you even spoke. Never learned that sometimes the most important moments happen when no one is watching. The palace healer's wing was quiet this early. Most were still sleeping before dawn rounds began. Lyra preferred it this way. She'd grown up in these halls. After her father died saving the old Alpha King from a shadow beast attack 15 years ago, the palace had taken her in, given her food and shelter and training. But they'd never let her forget she was here on charity. An orphaned Omega with no family name, no pack bonds, no value beyond her ability to fetch herbs and prepare medicines. Sage, the head healer, found her by the supply room. The ancient woman's silver hair was already pinned in its usual bun, her sharp eyes missing nothing. You're going for the moon petal today. Yes, ma'am. The sickness is spreading. We're down to 2 days of treatment supplies. Your father used to collect these, Sage said, her voice softening slightly. He had a gift for finding them, even in the worst conditions. You've inherited that at least. Lyra didn't know how to respond to that. Compliments from Sage were rare and usually had 2 meanings. She settled for a simple nod. Be careful in the high areas. Weather can turn fast this time of year. If you see storm signs, come back immediately. No herb is worth your life. Yes, ma'am. Sage studied her for a long moment, something unreadable in her ancient eyes. Then she pressed a small bottle into Lyra's hand. Warming tonic. If you get caught in cold, it'll buy you time. Your father gave me one once, years ago. Saved my life. Consider this repaying the debt. Lyra clutched the bottle, surprised by the gesture. Before she could thank her, Sage had already turned away, disappearing into the treatment rooms with her usual brisk efficiency. The climb took 4 hours. Lyra knew these mountains well, had spent countless days mapping the best routes, learning which paths were stable and which were death traps disguised as shortcuts. The moon petal grew in a specific alpine meadow, accessible only by those willing to risk the climb. She found the meadow exactly where it should be, carpeted in the distinctive silver-blue flowers that gave the plant its name. Working quickly and carefully, Lyra harvested what she needed, taking only mature blooms and leaving enough to reseed. Her father had taught her that in one of her few clear memories of him. Take what you need, leave what you must. The mountain provides, but only for those who respect it. By the time her basket was full, the sun had passed its highest point. Lyra allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. This would be enough to treat 50 patients, maybe more if they diluted it properly. The wasting sickness would be stopped before it could become an epidemic. That's when she noticed the sky. It had been clear when she'd started collecting, brilliant blue stretching endlessly. Now dark clouds massed on the northern horizon, moving with unnatural speed. Lyra's stomach dropped. She'd seen storms build in the mountains before, but never this fast, never this dark. She needed to descend now. The wind hit when she was halfway down, nearly knocking her off the narrow trail. Snow followed, fat flakes that quickly became a wall of white. Visibility dropped from miles to feet in minutes. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter, trying to shield her face from the stinging ice crystals. She knew these paths, had walked them dozens of times, but in a complete whiteout, every landmark disappeared. The trees that should mark the turn looked identical. The rocks that indicated safe passage were buried under rapidly accumulating snow. Lyra's hands were going numb despite her gloves. The cold bit through her layers, finding every gap in her clothing. She'd dressed for a day hike, not a blizzard. The warming tonic Sage had given her sat in her pocket, but she was saving it. If she got truly lost, truly desperate, she'd need it then. She pushed forward, trying to trust her instincts. Downhill was safety. As long as she kept descending, she'd eventually hit the lower forests where she could find shelter. That's when she tripped. Her foot caught on something buried in the snow, sending her sprawling. Lyra caught herself on her hands, the impact jarring through her wrists. Cursing, she looked back to see what had caught her and froze. It wasn't a rock or root. It was fur. White gold fur attached to a small wolf pup. The pup lay on its side, barely visible under the accumulating snow. It was tiny, no bigger than a medium-sized dog, with soft downy fur that seemed to glow even in the storm's gray light. But it was the wounds that made Lyra's breath catch. Black smoking wounds that looked like something had burned through the pup's delicate hide. She recognized them immediately because her father's journals, the only possession she had from him, described them in detail. Shadow beast venom. The same thing that had killed him. The wolf's amber eyes cracked open, finding hers with desperate intelligence. Not a wild animal, a shifter. Someone trapped in wolf form, dying from wounds that had no cure. Lyra should keep walking, should save herself. This wolf was already dead, and she'd die too if she didn't find shelter soon. Every logical thought screamed at her to leave, but she couldn't, because those amber eyes held the same look she'd seen in mirrors for years. Alone, forgotten, convinced death was inevitable. "I see you," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "You're not dying alone." She tried to pull him, gripped his thick fur, and hauled with all her strength. The pup was heavy for his size, maybe 40 pounds, but she managed to lift him into her arms, cradling his small, trembling body against her chest. Despite his small size, he felt heavier than he should, as if the wounds were weighing him down. The pup made a sound, low and pained. His eyes found hers again, and in them, she saw acceptance. He knew he was dying, was trying to tell her to go, to save herself. Lyra held him tighter against her chest, her arms shaking, not just from his weight, but from the cold seeping into her bones. She looked around desperately. No cave, no shelter, nothing but open mountainside and the storm trying to kill them both. The wind screamed past, stealing what little warmth remained in her body. She was maybe an hour from hypothermia. The pup had less time than that. 2 bodies generated more heat than one. It was basic survival knowledge. Shared warmth could mean the difference between death and mourning. The decision wasn't even really a decision. Lyra had been alone her entire life. If she was going to die, at least she wouldn't die that way. She sat down in the snow, tucking the small pup against her chest inside her cloak. He was still warm despite the wounds, despite the cold. She wrapped her cloak tightly around both of them, creating a cocoon of shared body heat. With one arm holding him secure and the other wrapped around herself, she curled into a protective ball around the tiny creature. "We're not dying alone," she whispered into his soft fur, "either of us." The pup shifted slightly, and she felt his small head nuzzle against her neck, a gesture of comfort, of thanks, of shared surrender. Lyra's eyes grew heavy. The cold was making her drowsy, and she knew that was dangerous. Sleep in a blizzard meant never waking. But her body was shutting down, conserving its last reserves. She tried to fight it, tried to stay alert. But exhaustion and hypothermia were stronger than will. Her consciousness slipped away as the storm raged around them. 2 dying souls huddled together in the snow. Somewhere in her fading awareness, Lyra felt warmth spreading from where her hands touched the wolf. Felt something flowing between them, some exchange she didn't understand. The last thing she registered before darkness claimed her completely was the sound of howling. Not the wind. Something else. Something that sounded almost like words. "She found you. She actually found you." When Lyra woke, her first thought was that she'd died, and the afterlife was surprisingly comfortable. She was warm. Not the desperate, fading warmth of hypothermia, but real warmth. Heat radiated against her back and draped over her side. She was lying on something soft, though she couldn't remember. Her eyes snapped open. She was still in the snow, still on the mountain. But the storm had passed, weak dawn light filtering through dispersing clouds. And she was definitely not alone. The weight draped over her side was an arm, a very human, very masculine arm, bare and corded with muscle. There was a leg tangled with hers, a body curved protectively around her back, and warm breath ghosting across the nape of her neck where her braid had come loose. Lyra's heart, which had been beating slowly from cold, suddenly thundered to life. She tried to shift to see who was holding her, and the arm around her waist tightened instinctively. "Don't move yet." A voice rumbled against her neck, rough and deep and still heavy with sleep. "Still cold. Need to stay close." The voice triggered something in her memory. The wolf. The dying wolf with amber eyes and blood-matted fur. But wolves didn't speak. Shifters in animal form couldn't use human words. "Unless you shifted," Lyra breathed. The man behind her went very still. Then slowly, carefully, he pulled back just enough for Lyra to roll over and face him. She'd expected someone injured, weak, barely alive. Instead, she found herself staring at possibly the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. His face was all strong lines and masculine angles, with a jaw sharp enough to cut and full lips that softened the harsh features. His hair fell past his shoulders in waves of honey gold, tangled and melting snow damp, but still somehow perfect, and his eyes, those same amber eyes that had watched her from a wolf's face, now human and intense and fixed on her with an expression she couldn't quite name. He was also very, very naked under the remains of her cloak. Lyra's face flamed. She tried to look away, to give him privacy, but his hand came up and gently caught her chin, keeping her gaze on his face. "You stayed," he said, his voice still rough. "I tried to tell you to go, to save yourself, but you stayed. I couldn't leave you to die alone." Something flickered in those amber eyes. Pain, gratitude, wonder. "What's your name?" "Lyra, I was collecting herbs when the storm hit. I got lost and found you. I tried to move you and there was no shelter and you were so small and hurt and I thought at least we wouldn't." She was babbling, her thoughts scattering under his intense stare. "I'm Caspian," he said quietly. The name registered. Every wolf in the kingdom knew that name. Caspian. The Alpha King who'd taken the throne 6 months ago after his older brother's sudden death. Caspian, who was supposed to be on a ceremonial hunt in the mountains. Caspian, who was currently naked and wrapped around a nobody Omega on a frozen mountainside. "You're the king," Lyra whispered. "I am." He didn't move, didn't pull away, just watched her process this with patient intensity. "Does that change things?" Before Lyra could answer, a sound made them both look up. A howl echoing across the mountainside. Then another, and another. A chorus of voices that raised every hair on Lyra's body. Caspian's eyes widened. His gaze shifted past Lyra, and his expression transformed into something close to shock. "By the moon goddess," he breathed. Lyra rolled over to see what he was staring at. 30 massive white wolves sat in a perfect circle around where they lay, not surrounding them threateningly, surrounding them protectively. And every single wolf had its head bowed, ears back in the universal gesture of submission and respect. They weren't looking at Caspian. They were looking at her. The largest wolf, sitting directly in front of them, shifted. The transformation was fluid and quick, leaving a man with silver-gray hair and ice-blue eyes kneeling in the snow. He was older, perhaps 50, with scars crossing his bare chest and the bearing of a warrior. "Your Majesty," the man said, though his eyes never left Lyra. "We've been searching for you since the attack. The whole kingdom has been looking." He finally glanced at Caspian, and relief flooded his face. "Thank the goddess you're alive." "Storm," Caspian said. and Lyra heard genuine affection in his voice. "I would have died if not for her." He gestured to Lyra, who was trying very hard not to look at anyone's naked anything. "This is Lyra. She found me dying and refused to leave." Storm's ice-blue eyes returned to Lyra, and she saw something in them that made her deeply uncomfortable. Recognition. Awe. Something that looked almost like reverence. "She has the gift," Storm said quietly. "The ancestral bond. That's why the pack bows to her. I don't have any gift," Lyra stammered. "I'm just a healer's assistant. I collect herbs and prepare medicines. There's nothing special about me." Storm smiled, and it transformed his harsh features into something almost gentle. "You lay beside a dying king, shared your warmth and your will to live, and brought him back from the edge of death. The shadow beast venom should have killed him hours before you found him. But look at him now." Lyra looked. Caspian was sitting up now, one hand clutching her cloak to maintain some modesty, and she could see his torso. Where there should have been black smoking wounds, there was only pink new skin. Scars, yes, but healed. Impossibly healed. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Shadow beast venom has no cure. My father died from it. Everyone who gets infected dies. Everyone without the ancestral bond dies," Storm corrected. "But those with the gift can cure even what seems impossible through connection, through shared life force. You healed him while you slept, girl. Purged the venom through sheer force of will and compassion." The 30 wolves surrounding them howled again, a sound of celebration and recognition. Lyra stared at them, at Storm, at Caspian, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Your father had the same gift," Storm continued. "He saved the old king using it 15 years ago. It's why shadow beast venom killed him. He purged it from the king but took too much into himself. We thought the gift died with him, but you inherited it. You just never knew." Lyra's hands were shaking. "This was too much, too overwhelming. I need to get back to the palace. I have moon petal to deliver. People are sick. They need you," Caspian said softly. His hand found hers in the snow, squeezed gently. "Lyra, you saved the king's life. That alone makes you important. But if you truly have the ancestral bond, you're invaluable. There hasn't been a bond carrier in 2 centuries. "I just wanted to collect herbs," Lyra said, and to her horror felt tears burning. "I wasn't trying to be special or important. I just didn't want you to die alone." "And that," Storm said, "is exactly why the pack recognizes you. The ancestral bond doesn't come from seeking power or glory. It comes from those who see life as sacred, who can't walk past suffering, who choose connection over survival." He bowed his head again, deeper this time. "You are true, Luna, whether you accept it or not, and this pack will serve you as faithfully as it serves its king." The other 29 wolves bowed again in perfect synchronization. The gesture, the sheer weight of it, made Lyra want to run screaming down the mountain. But Caspian's hand was still in hers, warm and solid, anchoring her to this impossible moment. "We should get you both down the mountain," Storm said, rising. "Your Majesty, can you shift?" "I think so. The poison is gone." Caspian squeezed Lyra's hand once more before releasing it. "Though I'm going to need clothes eventually." "We brought supplies," Storm said with the faintest hint of amusement. He gestured to one of the other wolves, who trotted forward with a pack in its mouth. As Caspian stood and began dressing behind a conveniently placed boulder, Lyra tried to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. She'd gone from invisible healer's assistant to someone a pack of 30 royal wolves bowed to, from collecting herbs to apparently having a legendary gift, from expecting to die alone in the snow to waking wrapped in a king's arms. Her life had never been predictable, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. One of the wolves approached her, moving slowly and carefully. It was a beautiful creature, pure white with intelligent gray eyes. It pressed its massive head against her hand, and Lyra stroked its fur automatically. The moment she touched it, she felt something shift, like a door opening in her mind. Suddenly she could feel the wolf's emotions, protectiveness, respect, joy at finding their king alive. And underneath it all, a deep, resonant certainty. True Luna. Finally found. Finally here, Lyra gasped, pulling her hand back. The connection faded but didn't completely disappear. She could still sense the wolf, a warm presence at the edge of her awareness. "That's the bond," Storm said from beside her. She hadn't heard him approach. "You can feel them now. Once it's active, it doesn't fade. Every wolf in the royal pack, you'll be able to sense their emotions, their location, their well-being. And they can feel you too. Your care, your compassion, your strength." "I'm not strong," Lyra protested. Storm's smile was knowing. "You carried a dying king through a blizzard with nothing but your body heat and your will to live. You're stronger than you know." Caspian emerged from behind the boulder, now dressed in dark traveling leathers that the pack had brought. Even rumpled and mountain-worn, he looked every inch a king. Powerful, commanding, absolutely out of Lyra's league in every possible way. "Let's get down the mountain," he said. "The kingdom thinks I'm dead. We should probably correct that before someone tries to claim my throne." The journey down was surreal. The 30 wolves formed a protective circle around Lyra and Caspian, with Storm in human form leading the way. Apparently, the pack had been searching for their king for 2 days, ever since the ceremonial hunt had gone wrong. "Tell me what happened," Storm said as they walked. "We were separated during the hunt. By the time we regrouped, you were gone. We found signs of shadow beast activity, but that should be impossible. They were eradicated centuries ago." Caspian's jaw clenched. "Someone summoned them. It had to be intentional. We were tracking an elk when they appeared from nowhere. 6 of them. I killed 3, but the others got me. Their venom works fast. I managed to shift and run, but the venom corrupted my transformation. Instead of my full wolf form, I ended up stuck as a pup. Couldn't shift back. Couldn't access my full strength. I was dying. I thought I'd find a quiet place to end it. Instead, I found her." He glanced at Lyra with something warm in his amber eyes. "The most stubborn Omega in the kingdom, apparently." "I prefer persistent," Lyra muttered. Storm's expression had gone hard. "Someone tried to assassinate you using forbidden magic. That's an act of war. Do you know who?" "No, but we're going to find out." Caspian's voice carried promise of payback. "Shadow beasts don't just appear. Someone with serious magical knowledge summoned them. Someone who wanted me dead." They reached the palace by late afternoon, and the reaction to the king's return was immediate and chaotic. Guards rushed forward, servants scattered to spread the news, and within minutes the courtyard was packed with wolves in various forms, all trying to get close to their returned ruler. Caspian handled it with practiced ease, accepting their relief and joy while also projecting calm authority. But Lyra noticed he kept her close, one hand on her elbow, guiding her through the crowd. "The girl," someone said. "Who's the girl?" "She found the king," another voice answered. "Saved his life, they're saying." The whispers spread like wildfire. Lyra wanted to disappear, to retreat to the healer's wing where she was invisible and comfortable, but Caspian's hand on her elbow kept her anchored. Sage appeared on the palace steps, her ancient eyes sharp and assessing. Her gaze went from Caspian to Lyra to the 30 wolves still surrounding them protectively. "Your Majesty," Sage said, bowing. "The kingdom mourned. We're blessed by your return." Then her eyes found Lyra, and something shifted in her expression. Understanding, maybe even pride. "I see you found more than moon petal in the mountains." "I've found my life," Caspian said, then louder, addressing the growing crowd. "This Omega saved her king. Lyra will be honored appropriately, but first, I need rest, medical attention, and a very long briefing on what's happened in my absence. Storm, organize the guard. I want to know everything about the hunting grounds where we were attacked." He finally released Lyra's elbow, but not before leaning close and murmuring, "Stay in the palace. We need to talk soon." Then he was swept away by advisors and guards, leaving Lyra standing in the courtyard with Sage and 30 wolves who still hadn't stopped staring at her. "Come," Sage said, her tone allowing no argument. "You look half frozen and completely overwhelmed. The healer's wing is still your home for now. For now." The words carried weight Lyra didn't want to examine. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Lyra tried to return to her normal duties, preparing medicines, organizing supplies, assisting with treatments, but nothing was normal anymore. People stared, whispered. The story of how she'd saved the king had spread through the palace like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each retelling. Worse, She could feel the wolves. All 30 of them. Their emotions pressed at the edges of her awareness constantly. She knew when Storm was training, knew when the pack was restless, knew when they were content. It was overwhelming and invasive, and she didn't know how to make it stop. Sage found her in the herb garden on the 3rd evening, sitting among the medicinal plants with her head in her hands. "The bond is loud at first," the old healer said, settling onto the bench beside Lyra. "It'll quiet as you learn to control it. Like any sense, you can choose where to focus. How do you know so much about it? I was there when your father manifested, watched him learn to use the gift. He struggled at first, too." Sage was quiet for a moment. "He would have been proud of you. Saving the king, inheriting his power, following in his footsteps." "I don't want his footsteps," Lyra said quietly. "I just want to be useful, to help people. I don't want to be special or important or whatever everyone thinks I am now." "Too late," Sage said, not unkindly. "The moment that pack bowed to you, your fate changed. True Luna isn't just a title. It's a responsibility. Those wolves will die for you now. The kingdom will look to you for things only someone with the ancestral bond can provide. You can't go back to being invisible, Lyra. That door is closed." Lyra knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. "The king has been asking for you," Sage added. "Every day, Storm keeps reporting that you're recovering, but Caspian wants to see you himself." "Why?" Lyra's heart did something complicated at the thought of facing him again. She'd been avoiding it, unsure how to act around someone she'd literally slept beside while he was dying. "Perhaps you should ask him yourself." Sage stood, her joints creaking slightly. "He's in the training yard, recovering through movement as alphas do. Go talk to him. Stop hiding in the herbs." Lyra wanted to argue, but Sage had already left, moving with surprising speed for someone her age. The training yard was in the north wing, an open courtyard where guards and warriors practiced. Lyra approached hesitantly, unsure if she was even allowed in this space. She was Omega Healing Track. Combat wasn't her world. She heard him before she saw him. The thwack of wood on wood, the rhythmic breathing of someone working through forms. Lyra peered around the edge of the doorway and her breath caught. Caspian wore only light training pants, his torso bare and gleaming with sweat. He moved through sword forms with fluid grace, each strike precise and controlled. The new scars on his side, remnants of the shadow beast venom, stood out against his golden skin. He was beautiful, powerful, completely out of her league. As if sensing her presence, Caspian stopped mid-form and turned. His amber eyes found hers across the yard, and something in his expression made her heart skip. "Lyra." He set down the practice sword and walked toward her, and she tried very hard to keep her gaze on his face and not the very well-defined muscles on display. "Storm said you were avoiding me." "I wasn't avoiding. I was recovering and working and trying to understand what happened." "Have you figured it out?" "No, nothing makes sense. I'm nobody. I shouldn't be able to do what I apparently did. The pack shouldn't bow to me. You shouldn't—" She stopped, unsure what she'd been about to say. "Shouldn't what?" Caspian stepped closer, and Lyra became acutely aware of how much taller he was, how much heat radiated from his still training warm body, how his eyes seemed to see straight through every defense she tried to build. "You're nervous," he observed, his voice dropping lower. "I'm professional," Lyra lied. Caspian reached out slowly, giving her plenty of time to step back. She didn't. His fingers wrapped around her wrist gently, his thumb pressing against her pulse point. "Your heartbeat says otherwise," he murmured. "It's racing. You're the king." "I'm not used to being this close to royalty." "Is that the only reason?" The question was soft, intimate, and held implications that made Lyra's mind go completely blank. Before she could formulate a response, Storm's voice cut through the moment. "Your Majesty, Council is requesting your presence. They've identified the magic signature from the shadow beasts." Caspian's expression transformed instantly, going from soft to hard. His hand dropped from Lyra's wrist, though his fingers lingered for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Go," Storm said to Lyra, not unkindly. "This conversation will involve things you don't need to hear yet. But soon." His ice-blue eyes held promise. "Soon you'll need to know everything, because what's coming will affect you too." Lyra fled, her heart still racing, her wrist still tingling where Caspian had touched her. She didn't know what was coming, but something told her the mountain had been only the beginning. That night, Lyra woke to knocking, soft but persistent, on her door. She lit a candle and opened it to find Caspian standing in the corridor, still wearing training clothes, looking like he'd just come from somewhere he shouldn't have been. "Can I come in?" His voice was rough, tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Lyra should say no. It was improper, possibly scandalous, but something in his expression made her step aside. Her room was small, barely more than a cell with a bed and a desk. Caspian looked absurdly large in the cramped space. He sat on the bed because there was nowhere else, and Lyra remained standing because sitting beside him felt too intimate. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Kept thinking about the attack, about dying in that snow, about waking up wrapped around you." His amber eyes found hers in the candlelight. "I should thank you properly for saving my life. You already thanked me multiple times. Not properly." He was quiet for a moment. "The council identified the magic signature. It's Noctis, a dark mage who was banished 20 years ago. He's back and he wants my throne. Can you stop him? I don't know. He's powerful, and he managed to summon shadow beasts, which should be impossible. We're trying to figure out how he did it, but until then..." Caspian ran a hand through his hair. "Frosty."